welcome back to another outstanding episode of the Film Alchemist podcast, the show where we take the movies we love, break them apart to find out what gives them their magic. I'm your host, Josh Griffey, joined as always by my insect in an ancient device and co-host,
Alex D'Andino.
That's
Alejandro.
right, guys. Yeah, this month we're doing the Del Toro, and it's going to be great. But before we dive into today's killer episode, a little bit of business. People, it is official. Your friends here on Film Alchemist are on Patreon. That's right, patreon.com/filmalchemistpod. The very best way to help and support the show. The very best way to make this show exactly what you want and deserve. Guys, for as little as $1 a month, and I assure you, every single dollar is greatly appreciated. You can get in, meet the community we've already been growing and establishing over there, see the cool stuff we're working on. And if you can and are able to go up the Highlander tier ranking system, you get to specifically select the movies that you want us to discuss in a Patreon exclusive library, which also is fun because it might start including some bonus content, some more episodes diving into stuff. So, guys, a lot of great stuff. We're working our asses off to make sure that the Patreon is worth it. We know that every dollar is hard-earned. We want to do the same. For those of you who support us already, thank you so much. For those of you who are about to, thank you as well. Make sure you go to YouTube. Subscribe to our channel, Film Alchemist, so you can see our eternally young faces. We don't need no devices or blood. We don't need no sangre. We're just genetically blessed. That's us. So again, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Film Alchemist. Email the show, filmalchemistpod@gmail.com. Find us on all the social media you're on. We're easy to get a hold of, guys. Reach on out. You'll hear from us. Also, guys, make sure you're leaving us a rating and review wherever you find the show. That's an easy, quick, free way to help us out. It does mean the world to us. Help us fight back against the algorithmic, germophobic, cane-whacking overlords that try to keep us down. But yeah, man, even on Spotify now, if you're a Spotify listener, it's a new feature. Make sure you go leave us a 5-star on Spotify. All right, enough of that shit. Let's get into it, man. I am fucking excited for this month's theme. This month, guys, we're doing Del Toro. All movies by the great Guillermo del Toro. He is just the guy who is making movies that feel specifically aimed at all of my happy places, right? Right. Wonderful filmmaker, wonderful advocate for kind of monsters and horror, right? The thing I love most about Del Toro, and this movie's a great example, right, is he really reflects, the monsters are not just always these hideous outside entities, right? He always finds the human in monsters and the monster in human. Every one of his movies has this wonderful magic about it. And not only that, he just seems like a really wonderful guy who absolutely adores movies. He's fascinating to listen to. I love this man very much. I'm really excited we're tackling his stuff this month. We are beginning with 1983's Cronos.
1993.
1993?
Yes.
Tomatoes. What's 10 years in the span of eternal life? If you put the Cronos device on the movie, 10 years is gone in a blink. No one knows. It was the 80s. They're not going to notice the mistake. All right, I was wrong. I'll admit it up front. I'm wrong. Let's move on. So, Alex, this movie really early taps into a lot of the stuff that Del Toro became so famous for, right? Mm-hmm. We have this wonderful visual telling of this device. We have a wonderful monster. We have fantastic, almost fairy tale like lore. We have a wonderful bond, a familial bond. This movie really has it all, and it's really fun to go back to the early stages of Del Toro and see the seeds of what was to come. Had you seen this movie, and what were your opening impressions of Cronos?
I had not seen Cronos. I thought I had. I had not. Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, like, it's
fucking rad.
It's Guillermo. I mean, honestly, I think this is like the really awesome thing about Guillermo del Toro. I think he's I even though people mark Guillermo del Toro, I think he is one of the criminally underrated master filmmakers of our time. Don't worry, like 10 or 20 years from now, we'll all realize how underappreciated he was, and we're all like, he's like, because he loves the things that like we love, like you and I particularly, like they are very much pointed movies, and I feel like anytime movies like his come out, we're like, huh, I was just thinking about how much I loved this. I'm like, great, now I get to go see a movie about it. But like, he does such a good job of making it work for not just modern cinema, but just in general, like everything feels like a love letter. Like there's nothing about the way Guillermo del Toro makes movies that doesn't feel like he's not a fan himself. And I think that's something that is very rare, especially amongst genre filmmakers. Because a lot of the time genre filmmaking feels very much like fan service. This is the first time when you watch Guillermo del Toro movies, I feel like I'm watching a filmmaker make something that he really, really loves and he's very passionate about. And I think Cronos is an amazing start because Cronos has so much Guillermo del Toro-ness. There's like weird iconography. There's strange little pieces here and there. There's a Ron Perlman. Like there's just all the pieces that you really love about Guillermo del Toro movies show up in Cronos. It was fucking, again, like it's just an awesome movie. It's a great setting the stage for what's to come. And like, I love that there's every movie you think of, he just keeps improving on what this like base was. And this base is incredible to begin with.
Right. And finally it melded where in Shape of Water, he finally got a lot of that recognition. I think that a lot of people had seen earlier, but now it was like for everyone, right?
Now it was like
a vast
cool.
amount of people are like, oh,
we were there
Fish Fucker
first,
movie.
assholes.
Yeah, like who's making the Fish Fucker movie, win an Oscar, right? And you're like, all right, so it's not for everyone, but if you know, you fucking know. And this movie starts off, and it in just like a couple minutes, this is a wonderful microcosm of why I love this man, right?
Yeah.
You start off with an alchemist who finds a way to create this Cronos device. He's the royal watchmaker, right? Just really kind of a deep lore thing, right? And this will give him eternal life. 400 years later, this man is found as this kind of almost hideously deformed white creature who has a building has collapsed. He is caught in the rubble. Something has pierced his heart and he dies. His apartment is full of upside down gushers, right? He's filling up bowls with the old good stuff, right? As they say in vampiric circles, the old good stuff. And because of that, they're like, well, this is gross. Let's not keep this going.
Let's not tell anyone.
Yeah. Call the maids. Let's get this fucking swept under a rug. All this guy's shit disappears. The Cronos device may not have ever existed, right? And what do we cut to from this scene of an upside down corpse and a weird looking archangel statue? Just a fucking grandpa and his granddaughter having a grand old time, right? Just fucking insanely endearing and sweet relationship of this man in his shop drawing hopscotch to play with this kid. And I was like, there it is, man. There is this wonderful, loving, relatable touchstone that I put my feet on after the fucking blood and carnage. And it's this really cool thing because in a way, what I think some of his movies, the best of his movies do, is when you see two characters that actually bond and have real love, that love becomes so much deeper and more important to us as the audience because we know that the monsters are circling.
Yeah. I think that's what makes Guillermo del Toro movies so special in general, is that they're never based in this like, it's interesting. Like they're almost not based in fear. It's strange. Like there's these fearsome elements, but the base level emotion in the movie is almost always love. Almost always there's the element of love is the base emotion that takes us through the movie, which makes the monsters that are circling, so to speak, that much, not even that much less terrifying, but that much, the stakes are already high enough. I think that's like, again, he knows how to tug at your heartstrings the right way. Like it's the real fucking deal, man. And not only that, he doesn't use the monster as a prop, right? In his movies,
almost exclusively the monsters are us, right? And he does the thing I love, right? Which is what the best horror movies do, is that the monsters are us people, right? So when we see the withering, rotting corpse of this old man that is still animated,
Yeah.
that is somehow a reflection of an emotional truth that we don't want to acknowledge, right? But the monster's still that weird fucker with the cane in the safe room. The monster's still Ron Perlman, right?
Absolutely.
So he looks at monsters in a way with this empathy, right? It's a hard to recognize truth, right? It's a person who has suffered because they didn't understand the consequences of a logical miscalculation. In this movie, a literal accident turns this grandpa into a corpse, right? He's cleaning the Cronos device that he finds in this cockroach-ridden statue. And as he's cleaning it, it stabs him. And then he becomes this addict-like bond with this eternal youth machine. There's never a moment where it feels like the grandpa is chasing this on some glorious journey to live forever.
No.
It just
this is
is
about
this kind
survival.
Right. It's this element of not even evil, right? But it's this weird ethical conundrum that just kind of accidentally fell in this man's hand. And we watch how that plays out. And I think that empathy for mystical and monstrous things is the real difference in why his movies feel different and often better than a lot of their contemporaries.
I agree. I mean, I think empathy it's the root. I mean, that's exactly how it has to be. I mean, it's one of those things like when you watch Frankenstein, for instance, do you feel for Frankenstein's monster? Do you feel for the man himself? Like, of course you relate to Frankenstein's monster. Like he is all of us. We're all lost in our own way. And I think that that's what's so great about Cronos particularly is even when we start getting a handle on something, we are also still just as lost as Jesus throughout the movie. Like it's not even when he knows what's going on, it's still this loss of, it's not even like a loss like the way in The Fly, like this like body change and those kinds of things. It's a loss of control over like what is next. It's it's not even fear of the unknown. It's just the unknown. I think what I love the most about the performance and particularly about Jesus's character is like, there's never a time for me that I feel like Jesus is in like abject fear, other than obviously like when he's about to be cremated, but like
that would rightfully fuck most of us up.
Rightfully so. But there is this very strange, almost it's a strange like knowing of change. It's a peculiar thing. I don't know how to properly describe it, but just the way that Jesus is characterized in this movie never really makes me feel like he's on a journey of change, but he never feels like he's scared of that change. He's just experiencing it in a lot of ways.
Yeah, well, there's not a... It's the difference between this and like your example, The Fly, right? In The Fly, Seth Brundle is laser focused on achieving something, right? On battering the laws of nature, right? Mm-hmm. Seth Brundle is the alchemist from the opening of the movie. This guy gets caught, and there's this wonderfully horrible scene, right? Where he's itching and rolling around, and he's having this... Oh, yeah. This, withdrawal
That scene
symptom.
is amazing, by the way.
Yeah, and then he grabs the thing and puts it on his hand, and there's sweet relief.
Yeah.
And he sees his granddaughter who sees him, and he goes, I'm okay. In his mind, he knows he's not okay. But again, he didn't put the Cronos on because... oh my God, I'm losing my powers. Oh my God, I need He puts it on because he's got an itch, right? And that's as simple as it is. And the movie even makes explicitly clear he never knows the rules of this thing, right?
No, he doesn't.
Because the creeper fucking holds the notebook, right? And so
like an asshole.
It literally just falls upon him. And I think that very understandable interaction with this wondrous object is great. The scene that really just hammers home to me why I love this film so much, right? Is he comes back from the meeting with the guys. He's gotten a little information. They fucked his shop up. And he's like, fuck you. I got the device. I got the book. Like, the game's afoot, right? They've set the boundaries. He goes home and he's looking for the device. I can't find it. He knows the little girl has it, right? He runs up to this room on the roof where she hides. And he's frantically looking for her, right? And he almost starts with, this, where are you? Like almost like yelling at her, right? Like he's mad.
Right.
She shouldn't touch his things. And there's this wonderful moment that I think all of us can relate to. As a parent, I really saw this, right? And he sees these little shoes. And he says the girl's name and the shoes disappear. And we just get this wonderful close-up of this sweaty, scared man in this horrible, unexplainable scenario. And he just fucking smiles. And he sits down and offers some tea to her and talks about how he knows how it's scary, right? And that he's sorry that he scared her, even though he himself is a victim. And that smile when he sees the shoes slide back, I was like, that's everything to me, man. Like, you don't get those moments in a lot of monster flicks. And that moment is so fucking sweet. And she comes out and she's put it in her teddy bear because she's trying to save Grandpa. And then a lot of that relationship is what I latched onto, right? The idea of her turning her toy box into a coffin for corpse Grandpa.
Oh, my God.
I was like, that's a beautiful, perfect Del Toro image. It's fucking sweet, man. And I love that that's where the movie goes, right? Like, there are a lot of great vampire movies that is the vampire is beginning. And again, I don't even know that I would classify this a vampire film, right? It kind of walks between a couple things. But there are a lot of movies that when this thing is descending upon them, we get the bloodlust scene.
Yeah.
And this one kind of skips that to show you that what matters and is scary about this device is that we know he's going to lose that little girl.
Right. I think that's the thing that's most important about the way that this movie works is not even the fact that it's assigned up front to us that this is the emotional core of the movie, this relationship between a grandfather and a granddaughter. What it is this is the part that's really fascinating is it's not like, this is the thing that's not fear of change. Like, it's not this, I love that this is the part of the movie that I latch onto the most because he's just going with it. She is complete understanding of it. She never hides, like she cowers from her grandfather simply so that she can hide the device from him. Never because he's scary or anything like that. It's still her grandfather. It's like, it's understanding the beauty in the world and understanding that, like, yes, there's a change, like things change, but this little girl in any other movie is like being chased or being hunted by a grandfather, by a loved one. And like, that is always like, I think that's always the really common beat. This particularly is the one that's just, this is about love. This is about, I want to save my grandpa.
Well, even those images near the end of the film when he's going on his mission and she brings Grandpa his blood-sucking device.
Yeah.
Right? And then she just kind of is down for the mission. She's like, yeah, Grandpa, I'll brain a guy. Like, let's go kill some fucks, Grandpa. I love you.
Love it. Yeah. Sidekick, the whole thing. Yeah.
Let's go kill this nose job and fuck, and then you can bounce me on your knee and tell me about the good old days, Grandpappy. She's just down, man, because that's her grandpa.
She is.
She's
down.
I think, I love that stuff, man.
Me too.
Another thing I loved about this film, man, I loved the choice that Del Toro made to go inside the Cronos device. What a weird fucking choice, man. But it was
cool,
so
man.
cool. Yeah. What did you make of this going in? Because at first you're like, wait, is that biomatter? What's happening? It turns out to be some kind of bug.
It's just a bug. I think this is another thing that I love about Guillermo del Toro is it's not about like the gross out, or it's not about what I would consider like just gore. He goes for, it's the creature effect. Like, he loves that, like all this stuff in his movies. Like, but that one particularly, I was like, that is a fucking awesome effect. Like, it is not even like this. It's this writhing, it's not a worm. It's just some weird like bug. It's so cool.
Well, the device has spider legs and then kind of like a scorpion tail. Mm-hmm. To attach that to this bug, it gives it this parasite feel, right? This infection.
It's very parasitic.
Yeah. Somehow life's the ultimate survivors, right? Buried in rocks and will just live for 100 years till you wake them up. This kind of us chasing after the insect abilities and how weird and not normal that feels. That really is fun because he goes inside of that thing 2 or 3 times, right? And so it's very important to him to show. And I think that the mixing of images, right? Because at first the montage, or the, not montage, but the shot begins with like the perfect spinning of mechanisms, right? You know, the perfect gears of the Royal Watchmaker.
Right.
And then you cut over, you just slowly drift over. You're like, oh, there's just this lumpy fucking bug. And it's this wonderful pairing of, you know, the perfect precision of science and alchemy. And then that's cool. You still need all this messy shit. Right? Like there's a point in the film when I was sitting there wondering, I'm like, is the bug important or is the Cronos device? Like if you just had the bug attached to your arm, would that do it? And but that mixing, right? It shows there is a version of this out here, but we have attached our science to it, and then that gives it a malicious new form.
Right. I like that the base. I think what I like the most is that this isn't about just. It's interesting. It almost dispels the alchemy of it all, really, when you think about it. Like what it is like the base of this is organics. It's not just like the Philosopher's Stone or anything like that. It's not a metaphor for enlightenment. It's not just the mechanics of man-made mechanics. It's literally just the basis for life, the basis for spreading anything. You know, I mean, and we're all and it's interesting because I thought about this in like relation to Mimic, which was I think the next movie he made after this, his second next movie. Maybe The Devil's Backbone came first.
I mean, it tracks.
But like, it's one of those things where I was like,
I got a lot of shit to say about bugs.
But like, there's this, I like the idea that the base for prolonged life or whatever this is that happens to Jesus is, it's organic in nature. It's organic in nature. And it's the same. It's in the same way that a lot of villains in Guillermo del Toro movies try to control nature itself. Mm-hmm. Like the attempt to control nature itself is so violent. And that is the part, that's the thing that I love the most about it. Even the more Hollywood, like once we get deeper into Del Toro with like Blade 2 and those kinds of things, the attempt to control nature is so violent and so fleeting that I think that's what I like the most about that. Just that, like those little cut scenes of inside the mechanism is controlling nature, sure, but like you can't control what happens to nature once it gets out. And I think that is the thing that I love the most about that beat.
Well, it's also this cool reinforcement, right? Of yes, you can live forever, but at what cost and what kind of life, right? This insect is obviously living forever. Is that the life you want? Right? Do you want to be the insect attached to this fucking machine? And I just thought that was cool, man. And then you mix it with, we watch this man beginning to descend and lose, right? So there's the one where he's got it on his teat, right? He's just like doing a little quick teat injection because he wants to be all freshed up, right? He shaves. He's like, I'm going to go out and to this party, right? I'm gonna get a little teat suck, get my venoms out, and then I'll be ready to fucking cut a rug.
Absolutely.
And so there's this kind of scary moment in the bathroom, right? Where he's getting his tit sucked. They're like, hey, come on. And he's looking in the mirror and doing this like, you know, who the fuck am I? What is this body, right? There's like this fucking viscous, gross gack on his wounds. And he talks to the little device, right? And I believe he says, who are you, little one? Are you God? And then he goes, you're very good for me. And in our minds, we're like, I think not, right? Like, I feel like we're about to get the counterpoint. And, but then it's like, so we go from that where you're like, this is scary body horror. This is not right. What's he using that tit suck for? So he can dance with his wife. And the kind of beat of that next scene is that him and his wife can't even be bothered with the conversation at the table because they're just looking at each other in a way they haven't in a long time, man. And again, just reinforcing this is the shit that matters while this crazy shit's going on. Then we get to the truly scariest scene in the movie, right? So there's a bloody rag, right? He follows the room. Oh, no, the blood sucking. All right. Yeah. So he sees the blood all over this counter, and he's about to start freebasing the blood, right? Like a little, was this a 1980s movie? I don't know. Greed is good. Blood greed is good. And then all of a sudden, as this horrifying thing's about to happen, he ups the horror, right? This fucking bulbous rube just fucking mashes his way out of the shitter, right? Clearly took a big dump. He's readjusting his whole body. He walks up to the sink where the guy's about to snort blood, and he goes, "Oh, ridiculous." Uses his fucking hands to wash the blood into the sink, right? Then he turns on the water, gets a little sprinkle on his hand, flicks the water off, and leaves. So it's like, not only does that guy just have dump all over his hands,
poop hands all over,
probably just not a strong wipe because he was busy about getting out of there, just like fecal all over this man's bod. And then he's like, yeah, I'll touch the random party blood, and doesn't wash his fucking hands.
Yeah, you're right. You know what? I take it back. This movie might have been made. I think this movie was actually made in '83 and released in '93.
I'm telling you, in Del Toro movies, always look for the human monsters. Fucking dump blood wiper guy is the scariest character he's ever put to film. I watched that and I gagged and had to go back 3 times because I was like, no, there's not a squirt of soap. There's not a nothing. There's not a nothing. He's not putting like driving gloves on afterwards.
Nope.
Just the foul. Just the old dumping blood, eh?
Yep. No. It was like Andy Dufresne foul. Just.
But then, and then, I mean, it's even worse because Jesus then gets on the floor where old bloody poop monster
has to lap it up.
Lick it up. Takes like the saddest little, like the saddest tiny lick, and then just gets kicked in the gourd. I was like, this
in
is
the
just
fucking face.
Taking the saddest turn in movie history.
I think that's the thing too, is like, you're like, it's funny because like we get to the next scene and he like wakes up and they basically like, I'm just like, is this man's last meal gonna be fucking fecal laced blood? That is just the worst. That's no man, whatever creature of the night you might be, should go.
I'm gonna
such
have
a
to
way.
go watch again. I'm not even sure Bloody Rag Guy washed his hands proper.
I don't think anybody washed their hands proper.
This is why this isn't a real vampire movie. You can't be chowing down on monsters that don't wash their bodies.
Yeah, no, that's not a thing.
No wonder maybe that guy's not a monster for living in the fucking germ room. He's like, everywhere I look, it's just shit and blood. It's filling the streets. I thought he was crazy. Maybe not.
That is like, by the way, that room is one of my favorite design elements I've seen.
Oh
in
yeah,
a long
that's
time.
That's just odd. Well, it's one of those great things where it's this odd mix of you instantly recognize what it is, so it's familiar, but also this is very wrong. This is very cold and wrong. It's just a great mix, man. Oh, so one thing before we go to that guy. What did you make of the decision to make Jesus this corpse man, right? Gets fucking rolled off the cliff, dead in the car. I forget how he says, he has this great line, right? Is he sitting in this smashed car?
Yeah.
And he goes, all that blood is mine. I'm dying. He talks about pain or something like that. And then he goes, I can endure a lot more.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I was like, but why? Why does this man wants to keep fighting like that? I guess the granddaughter and shit. But,
love.
I mean, I guess.
I mean, we're talking about Guillermo del Toro, man.
He's like, I want to get back to that bathroom floor bad. No, but
pure love.
So what do you make about this turn into doing an actual like Nosferatu tale, right? So instead of man who's gaining powers via blood drinking, this is actually the rotting corpse of a man, right? What did you make of the turn that the film takes for Jesus in this beat?
Well, it's interesting, like it's what we all expect. It's an interesting like reversal of the idea. It's a reversal, but not really, of the idea of what vampirism is. Because like for me, I'm not even sure I would characterize what's happening to him as vampirism. Like other than just bloodlust, there's a lot of elements of that, obviously, like sunlight. There's a coffin type thing, I guess, but to me,
yeah, it's got the window dressings of a vampire film, but in the wrong house almost.
Well, I mean, to me, it's like the shedding of skin. It's actually much lot like much like a bug, much like a snake might do. It's the shedding of skin for a new life. And like, man, I fucking love this. Is some of my favorite creature effects I've seen in like first timer movies too. Like, and also like Del Toro. I was actually just listening to him on Mark Maron because he did an interview about Nightmare Alley, but he was talking about he did most of the makeup effects for Cronos because it just saved money. Because he spent a lot of time when he was younger learning a lot about makeup effects. And so for Cronos, he actually did this. I love like when he starts digging under his skin. I'm just like, that is so fucking cool.
When he puts his hand in his
when he
belly.
puts his hand in his torso, I was like, that is awesome. It was so, and like but like to me, it makes total sense. Like, of course, underneath is what's happening. Like, it's not about the like your exposed flesh is a thing of the past. There's no reason. Like, you're a new person you were a new person to begin with. So now underneath, of course, you're a new person. So, yeah. I mean, for me, like from a metaphorical point of view, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, of course he would become this alabaster person because he's not just human anymore. He's not even perfect human, but he's like marble human. Marble's not perfect, but it can be made perfect. It can be chiseled perfect. It's interesting.
Yeah, the under design was really fascinating, right? Because he has almost these lines and contour. I mean,
it's like marble.
But that scene for a first movie, right, is just wonderfully laid out, awesome. Right? What's happening? He's like, peel your skin off. So we see him peel his skin off. There's this white corpsey thing underneath. We saw it with the Alchemist, right? But just the visuals of that, right? He peels it off. He looks in this kind of like very dull reflection, right? Like a metallic reflection of himself. And Jesus only sees the monster that he's become, right? This curse.
Right.
Meanwhile, Gloves Mick hit people in the nose is looking across. He sees his salvation. And again, it's an early example of what Del Toro's great at is one man sees a monster and a curse and loss, and another man sees his opportunity, right?
Right.
That he's willing to make those sacrifices. He has nothing, he doesn't care. He has nothing to lose, right? He doesn't really love anything. So why would he feel the pain of being that monster? And tries to take it, right? And then, a fight ensues. And I love that beat, too, where Ron Perlman comes in. And it's kind of the inversion of the grandpa-granddaughter relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Totally. He's actually cheering like, he's fucking dead, it's all mine.
Constantly berating him, even though this guy's doing all his chores.
And not only that, but is such a piece of shit that not only berates him, constantly keeps breaking his nose, which he's obviously very insecure
very conscientious about. Yes.
This motherfucker. And it's this great unleashing of Ron Perlman in the movie. Because he's always been so good. Like, there's that scene when he's charming and playing with the gum with the girl.
Right.
And you're like, what a warm, like, charismatic guy. But also with just a look, you're like, man, that's a bastard you don't want to fuck with. And this is the unleashing when, the uncle or whatever, eyes open. And he's like, no, I've had enough of you. It's mine now. Fucking throat stomps him.
Yeah.
And then he chases them out and they're going to have their big fucking fight.
Can I just say, I love Ron Perlman in this movie. Like,
love him.
I think it's very rare to find, like, because it's not that he's everywhere. It's more just like, it's very rare to find Ron Perlman young. And it's so weird to see him the way he is. Because, like, we're used to Hellboy Ron Perlman or like Sons of Anarchy Ron Perlman. It's interesting to see him as not just a lackey, but then also like when he, right before he fucking throat stomps him, he's just like dancing around like, yeah, it's mine. It's all mine. And I'm like, I fucking love Ron Perlman so much. Like, he goes so deep. And like, this is why I love him with Guillermo del Toro movies too. Because Guillermo del Toro gives Ron Perlman the room to do what Ron Perlman does, which is like throw all of our expectations out the window. Like that first scene when he's in the pawn shop, it's not a pawn shop, it's an antique shop. But either way, that first scene where he's talking to the little girl and when he does the little nose thing, like there's just so much about this. There's so much about this performance and there's so much about what you see from Ron Perlman that you're like, this guy has, there's no, like, he doesn't, like, he's just going for broke every time. Like, every movie he's going for broke. But this one particularly, he's like, I see an opportunity, I'm going to take it. It's It's awesome.
Yeah, man. And, you know, we kind of get to our, like, standard bad guy moment. And I love that line Jesus has at the end, right? Where,
Right.
you know, you've got much more to lose than I. I just have more pain.
Right.
Fucking sneaks his ass and tackles him off the roof. They're laying there.
Right.
And what Jesus does in the last minute, right, is I am Jesus Grease, right? However you pronounce it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's proper pronunciation, right? I am
Grease.
Jesus Grease. And he just keeps saying it, right? He's reclaiming himself, right? While he is in form this kind of monstrous, sad thing, he has protected his family, right? He had something to live for that they didn't, and even die for, right? And I love that beat of him reclaiming it, because the last scene to me is kind of a strange one, right? Where we cut to, he's in like these vampiric jammies, and he's laying out on this bed, and the granddaughter comes in and lays on his chest, right? A wonderful image of this granddaughter just laying on her grandpa, now in full monstrous, you know, form.
Right.
But then the wife comes in and it gets really weird, right? He reaches out, they hold hands. And then it seems like the sunlight is coming, right? And to me, it reminded me very much that famous last bit of Nosferatu, right? Where he's in the room, he whips around the sun, and he fucking disappears, right? And we just fade to white, but we don't see him burst into flames. We don't see him melt. We don't see him technically leave his family, right?
Right.
So it's this weird choice that lets us, the audience, decide that if we want to believe that he's got the Cronos and if he can bear the pain, he could stay with his family.
I mean,
because it feels like they're saying he's going to explode in flame, right?
Well, it's what it makes it sound, because like he was supposed to die when the Cronos device was broken too.
Yes,
like,
I thought that too. Okay.
Because that's what I thought. Like, that's the beat it's supposed to be, is like, that's the catch. Like, that's the way, or like, that's the other way out, essentially, that the other guy tells him. But like, to me, yeah, there is this like sort of, I don't know, like, I grew up Catholic, so maybe that's why I'm pulling this. But like, to me, it is this sort of like, and I think he says this in his voiceover too, which is like, maybe God's sparing him. Like, this is like his redemption, essentially. But like, to me, I don't think he explodes at the end. I think it's a matter of what you use it for. You know what I mean? And maybe that's what it is.
Well, we see him earlier violently react to sunlight.
Right.
So it feels like we're going to get the traditional ending, but it's just that little extra kind of self-awareness of what this movie is. Mm-hmm. We don't want to see Jesus melt away.
No,
we want to see Jesus embrace the women of his life. Yeah, man.
Absolutely.
I thought that was a beautiful last moment, man.
I agree.
Especially because the first guy we saw is this lonely fucking craven alchemist by himself with nothing but bugs and shrapnel around, right? And that leads us all the way to, we just see this guy who forsook eternal life by smashing a device and is just cool with that because he's getting this moment with his family, right? Like,
right.
And I think this movie, it's probably not his most fully streamlined and, you know, formed film. But just everywhere you turn, man. Like, even the mortician is just a wonderful character, right? Mm-hmm. What in most movies would be a throwaway character is this really funny character, right? You know, he's mad they're going to cremate his art, and he puts his fucking gum on his chest, and just these little details, right? These little human things that constantly keep emerging in the middle of our blood-sucking vampire melting guy movie.
Right.
It's just rare that you get, I feel like this movie, like the Cronos device, finds the soft flesh of your heart and fucking sinks in, man.
Yeah.
And I think it's fun to go back and imagine, right? Did people who saw this movie be like, well, that was a quirky, like, oddity, or did they know, like, holy shit, man?
Right.
Look at, like, imagine what's to come from this man, right? Do you see this movie and be like, someday he'll make the Fishfucker Oscar winner movie, right? Like, what a wonderful journey. But I feel like I think it's
To be
cool to
honest
see
with you?
starting films, right? Like last year
Yeah.
for the first time, I saw Blood Simple, the Coen brothers' first
Oh,
movie.
yeah.
And you're just like, that's just about as good a first film
Yeah.
as I've ever seen, right? We just this year covered Reservoir Dogs, right?
Reservoir Dogs.
You're like, that's a fully formed fucking filmmaker on his first run, man.
I mean, I think that you see all the bones. You see all the bones that make Guillermo del Toro work. And I think, yeah, like, it's funny because I think you watch The Shape of Water and then you could watch this and be like, I can see where all this is going.
Yeah.
Like, you can see it happening because it has all the same sensibilities. It has all the same trademarks, and it has, most importantly, it has all the same feelings. And I think that that's something really important that Guillermo del Toro does throughout all his movies is like, all of his movies are about very human, earthly qualities, even though they take place in very bizarre, unearthly places, unearthly times. There's something very real and very emotional about all the things that happen in these movies. And that is, I think, the most important thing about Guillermo del Toro as a filmmaker is he's assigned so much emotion to his stories that by the time we're deep enough in them, we're so caught up. Like, it doesn't matter if something doesn't work. It doesn't matter if the logic necessarily about vampirism in this particular movie doesn't work. The only thing that matters is, did that guy eat bloody shit off the floor? That's like probably the most important thing I can say about Cronos.
That's when he becomes Seth Brundle. He's like, kill me. These people don't wash their hands. But that's what I'm saying, right? Like, you look at this as his first feature film versus, like, another one we've covered, Peter Jackson's Bad Taste, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you look at Bad Taste and imagine the emotional depth that something like Lord of the Rings
Not even close.
captured. Even his King Kong, man, his emotional maturity was huge on camera, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not that he wasn't before, but he was putting it up on the screen now. Bad Taste is just like a fucking like schlock fest, like punk rock movie, right?
Right.
I think with this one, it's really wonderful to see that it was there the whole time, man. I don't know. I think this is a lovely way to start our Del Toro month. We for sure are discussing Pan's Labyrinth. We are for sure discussing Crimson Peak. We've already covered The Shape of Water. We may be talking about Nightmare Alley. And the fans, the patrons will select our next film. So that's it for Cronos, guys. If you
Cannot wait.
Yeah, if you want to make your voice heard in our old selection process, go to patreon.com/filmalchemistpod. Join us, guys. It's the absolute best way to help the show. We appreciate it so much. You get a vote on a lot of stuff. You get to pick the episodes you want. It's a lot of bang for your buck. A lot of fun stuff going on over on patreon.com/filmalchemistpod. The YouTube is Film Alchemist. The email is filmalchemistpod@gmail.com. Make sure you leave those ratings and reviews, especially now on Spotify. And more than anything, guys, thanks for hanging out with us. Get ready for some Del Toro in your life.
Yes.